Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Who Are You podcast. I'm your host, Connor Overbay. This is your first time checking out the podcast. Welcome, 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 welcome. We're always happy to have a new listener here. Make sure you guys give us a follow on all of our social media. It's going to be Who Are You Pod on everything from Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all the normal spots. Also, we have the YouTube up finally. We've been doing this for a couple months now, starting to do more of the video side of things. So if you guys want to kind of see us more than just listening to us, give us a subscribe on YouTube. It's going to be Who Are You podcast, and you guys will be able to find us on there. But today, I'm sitting down with a very, very special guest. A gentleman I'm sure doesn't even really need a introduction here, but I'm going to anyways. This gentleman's been all over Jacksonville. He's been on some of my buddies' podcasts, seen him on the Wine Down Wednesdays. What else? Really, a mix of all kinds of things. His music, all kinds of different events. So make sure you guys go to check out Mr. DJ Larry Love. Yes, shout out. Welcome to the podcast, my man.
Thank you for having me.
Hell yeah. And before we get started, if you want to let everybody know where they can follow you on social media or anything you want to promote right here.
Yeah, you can follow me at on Instagram, Facebook, X.
I know, I messed it up all the time.
TikTok, YouTube, all those things is at I am DJ Larry Love. I am DJ Larry Love. You can find all the rest of the things that I'm involved in, which is about 10 million of them. You can find all those things at the link inside of my bio. You'll see all the things that I'm involved in as well.
Hell yeah, man. And I'll make sure everything's in the description for you so they can kind of click on anything they want to find and get to learn more about you. But as you said, you're a man of many talents, a busy man from what I've seen as well. I would say so. Recently, I saw you in the Wine Down Wednesday group. You guys are all one group together on the news, man. Shout out to you guys. I'd love to see that coming out and you guys being able to promote what you got going on.
Yeah. That moment is always, so we've been on the news. That's our second time. That's always it's a small moment for some people, but it's a big moment for me because I grew up watching News for Jax as a child and looking up to all those anchors and the newsman and the newswoman, you know what I'm saying, the weatherman, and to have my mom and my grandma be able to watch me on that television show essentially is really cool a couple times. So yeah, it was a great opportunity for us to be able to, spread our message of what we're trying to do with the community.
Yeah, man. And I love to see everything that you guys are doing is positive. That's one big thing that we really talk about here on the podcast. And what we try to promote is more the positive side of what's going on in Jacksonville. Sure. Because, some stuff you see on the news kind of brings it down a little bit, obviously. Absolutely. And that's every city. Every city has their issues and people are up to no good and everything. But it's nice to see a nice beacon of light from you guys. You've all come together from different backgrounds, doing different things to create something that's absolutely beautiful. And, every time I see you guys post an event or seeing the event, everybody in the crowd, getting into the music or the vendors and everything, man, it's awesome to see local Jacksonville getting together. Sure. So we're going to get a little bit into you first. I want to learn a little bit more about your background and everything, and then we'll get a little bit more deep into, Wine Down Fest, all that good stuff.
Sure.
So the first thing I always ask is, where are you originally from, man?
Yeah, born and raised right here in Duval County, Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah. I was born on around the north side of Jacksonville, and then spent some of my childhood years on the west side, and then spent pretty much all of my teenage years kind of all over, but on the south side mostly. So we're Saints. We talked about
that's right.
Sandalwood Saints, man.
Sandalwood Saints. I'm having a couple on here now. We were just talking about Fat Boy Fried Rice being on here.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, sure. Man. And you said what class were you?
2010.
2010, man. Oh, shit. I thought you were about around my age. I wouldn't have even known. How old are you? It's 2010. What's that make you?
I'm 32. I'll actually be 33 in 2 weeks.
You're looking good, man. I say no grays, nothing. Still keeping it healthy and everything.
Trying to.
So what was life kind of growing up for you like? Was family all together? Any kind of divorce, brothers and sisters, any of that good stuff?
Yeah, man. So my parents were together till I was about 7. And then they split, and me and my mom moved with my grandma. My dad stayed in the house. But I grew up with a lot of family, so I'm the only child. I don't have any brothers and sisters, but it didn't feel that way. I often tell my friends I would wake up on Saturday mornings, and 3 of my cousins would be jumping in my bed, and I'm just waking up, and I'm like, "Why are you here?" You know what I'm saying? So that was a pretty normal life for me. Even once my parents split, I feel like it got even deeper because at that point they were coming to our home, but then when we moved with my grandmother, they lived across the street. So it's like,
what? Yeah, that's sweet. Some built-in friends right there.
My it's kind of we grew up in real community. Like my entire family lived on my mom's side, lived in that neighborhood. So on our street, I had 3 cousins that lived 3 houses. The 3 houses next to me, the house across the street was my aunt. Literally across the street, and then the house catty corner was my great grandmother.
That's sweet.
Yeah,
dude.
And that was just that row. We had the 4 or 5 streets beyond were my great aunts, and literally, so I grew up with community literally until I graduated high school.
That's
it's still the same. So.
That's what you need, man.
Yeah.
I would say I'm very big on that. Like where me and Shannon live here currently, you know, my dad's a mile down the street. My parents are split as well, but my dad and my stepmom live a mile down the street. My mom and my stepfather live the other mile down the street. I was an only child until I was about 10 years old, and then my mom and my stepfather had my half brother Seth. Shout out Seth.
My son's name is Seth.
Hey, I like it. I like it. And it's crazy, man, just seeing, you know, how times have changed. Because I remember whenever I was younger, it was a lot more turmoil. Like the parents did not like each other, couldn't even stand each other being in the same room. And to now seeing where they are at today, you know, like me and Shannon got married a little close to a year ago now, and it was thank you, my man. I appreciate you. You know, we've been together for, is it 8 or 9 years, love? 8. So I should know that. But you know, just seeing the difference, and you got to have that community, man. That's what builds you up to who you are today.
Absolutely, yes.
And give you that person to fall back on when you have questions. You know, I'm sure as you've gotten older, just like I have, you know, how do I pay bills? How do I make it? Like, what are taxes? Like, what are we doing with this kind of stuff?
Talk me through this.
Or even, you know, getting your first apartment, dude. I was so freaked out. I moved out at 18 years old, thought I was big and bad, had a little bit of money in the pocket, and then I get in there, and I'm like, wow, things are real expensive. How did they pay to feed me every single week?
Do this every week. Nah, for real.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what would your mom do, business-wise, occupation-wise? What was she into as you were growing up?
Yeah, so my mom actually worked at Mayo Clinic for 40 years.
Shout out. That's awesome.
Man. That's not normal. I mean, for their time, it kind of was, but especially for us. But yeah, she worked there for 40 years. She basically was, not a surgical tech, but her job kind of changed a couple times as Mayo changed. But she essentially worked in the OR, just cleaning instruments, etc.
Really?
She saw a lot of stuff throughout the years, surgery wise. So you know, Mayo Clinic is one of the biggest hospitals in the nation. So
yeah, that's where I actually have family that works there as well. I say stepmom works in the offices up the front. She was a nurse for a while, and then had a brother that worked there, or my stepbrother Tyler worked there for a little while, was a nurse, and now he's at like Baptist. But the medical field's big in my family. You know, I was originally going to college to be a nurse, and then COVID happened, and you know, had to figure everything out since then. So, but that's awesome. And what about your dad?
My dad, I guess you could call him a machinist. He used to work for Anheuser-Busch has a can plant right here in Jacksonville off of Ellis Road. And he worked. He did that for about 20 years. Before that, he worked at a place called Clean and Hanger. But he works on machines that are the size of multiple houses. You know what I mean? That's his job to maintain them. So he did that. He actually retired pretty early. Quite a few back surgeries. You know what I'm saying?
I can understand.
But yeah, man, he was a machinist most of my life. All of my uncles on my dad's side, they all were great with their hands.
That's awesome, man. I respect that. Like I worked in trades for a little while. I worked in did pest control for about 4 years. So I was up in people's attics, spraying houses, you know, going all over the place. And so, you know, if there's anything I respect now is the people who are working outside on a day-to-day basis, or even in those big machines, man. I know that's not easy work. You said there's some back surgeries and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
What were some of your first jobs when you were growing up?
Man, so some people know this. If you didn't know me when I first started DJing, you might not know this. So my very first job I was a summer camp counselor.
Hey.
I was pretty much raised to be an educator, so I kind of figured I was going to be in that vein. Graduated high school and went to UNF for a couple years.
Shout out.
And then ended up getting married, and I joined the military.
What?
Yes, I was in the Air Force for 9 years.
Thank you for your service.
For sure, I did. Thank you. Well, I did 3 years active duty and 6 years in the Florida Air National Guard.
Hell yeah, man. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, I had a couple of random jobs. I worked in medical field. I worked at UF Health. Used to call it Shands at the time. Worked there for about a year and some change. Had a couple odd jobs before I decided to make that leap. But
I mean, man, it's a good decision. I feel like, you know, the military takes care of you a little bit afterwards, you know, and obviously you were in there, you said, for 9 years.
9 years.
Damn, man. That's what made you think, you know what? I'm done with odd jobs and make that leap to the military. Because I feel, for me personally, I've thought about it a couple of times, and it's just I don't know what kind of trips me up. I was like, I don't know.
So I kind of my mom's side was a military family. So my dad's side, my grandfather served, and then pretty much none of the kids served. None of the grandkids served until it was pretty much me. On my mom's side, it was different. All of my cousins were either Navy, or I had 1 or 2 cousins in the Air Force. And it was kind of always somewhat of an option as I was trying to figure things out. I got into my junior year for becoming an educator, elementary school teacher actually, and I just was not cool with how DCPS was with the kids. It was just very frustrating as I was doing my clinicals. So I was like, Yeah, I have to figure something out because I also wasn't trying to come out of pocket for school.
Hey, that's actually a really true point, to be honest with you. I totally understand that.
For sure. So the military is always kind of right there, made sense. So it was one of the best decisions I could have ever made, to be honest.
So you had a good experience in the military.
I had a good and interesting and bad experience. But, the good for me literally outweighed the bad. But that's ultimately why I had to get out at year 9, just because it was like, all right, I feel like it served its purpose in my life. So
I understand. Yeah. And what'd you do in the military?
So I did 2 things. I was a dental lab technician. So I made anything from dentures to fixed partial dentures to retainers, anything that goes inside the mouth for dental purposes. I learned how to make them. Wow. I did that for 3 years. And then when I switched to the Air Guard, they were like, yeah, this job doesn't exist, so you have to retrain. And I was like, all right. That school took me 7 months to complete, that first school. Man, we took like 3 or 4 tests a day. If you failed 3 tests in a cycle, you get kicked out.
Ooh.
Sometimes we took 3 or 4 tests in a day. It was intense for 7 months. Yeah, it's crazy.
Jeez,
and we're in school Monday through Friday, like 7 to 3 or something like that. So I had to cross train, and I went. My job. So the Air Force has really weird job titles.
I'm sure.
This is called an Aerospace Ground Equipment Technician. What is that?
I have
you know
no
what I'm saying? Exactly. They call us H-Techs. So basically, we helped maintain the machines that they use to fix the planes.
Gotcha.
Yep. So very important job because they can't fix these planes without these machines. So I had to learn everything from how to work with generators to how to fix a car. Like I know kind of a little bit of everything in the mechanic world, if you will. So we kind of jack of all trades. We had to learn every part from AC/DC, how to electrical. We had to learn it all.
Dang, man.
So my skills, it's kind of crazy.
I mean, it sounds like it, dude. It sounds like you've been kind of had your hands in many different things. And I feel like that does help, make you a full person, kind of figure out other things that you want to do. It's good, man.
Absolutely.
And that's the way I look at it, dude. I feel like it's good to go take chances, go check other things out, and you never know what you might fall in love with.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you got out of the military?
Man, I was 2021, so I was 20. I had to be 28.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 28, 29. Yeah.
What made you make that final decision to? Because at least from my knowledge, 10 years is like kind of a big mark, right?
Absolutely. You hit 10, you got to decide left or right.
Okay, gotcha. Sure. So what made you say, you know what, I'm good, get out of here?
I was coming up on 10, and I kind of had to just sit with where everything was. So mind you. And we'll get to that point, but becoming a DJ was never part of the plan. It's never part of the plan. So I was a DJ at this point and was making some strides, and I started traveling the country as a DJ, and I was like, okay, there's something here for real. But I know, so I kind of moved back here to be with my son, and it was just a lot going on, family things, and I was like, okay, I can't do all of these things. I have to pick. And like I said, I had a great time when I was active duty. The Air National Guard, which is very different.
I understand.
And I was like, I can't do this for another 11 years. Like, it's going to stress me out. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, I kind of already knew, like, I got everything I needed from the military. It was a stepping stone, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it was like, all right. Most people do 20 anyways and get out, and you have to figure out life after that. And I was like, yeah, I'll just figure out life now. Hey. I'm not going to wait till 20. So
that's a real choice, man. I totally understand. Like I said, respect for, signing that paper, man, getting in there, because, there's a lot of people that are a little worried, including myself, man. I always thought about it. And I was like, I could get in there and see what it was. And I'm also a person where a little bit strong-willed. I know the military will beat that out of you or get it out of your head real quick. So I kind of just stepped to the side, and I played sports for most of my life. And then I originally was going to go to school, be a nurse, and then COVID happened, and like you said, figuring out life. I had to figure it out, get bills paid, and I wanted to make sure I could provide for her as well. Sure. She works a full-time job just like I do, and yeah, life's just weird, man. You kind of end up in some weird spaces.
Very interesting.
and you said you was a son or a daughter? I'm sorry.
I have a son.
How old's your son?
10.
What?
Yeah, he's 10. I have a 10-year-old son.
So he has a personality going around right now.
Yeah, very much so. He's an amazing kid. So proud of him, man. But yeah.
Were you always, like, from a young age, did you want to be a dad? Was it more
Absolutely,
of something?
Yeah, family is very important to me. You know what I mean? I wasn't sure if I wanted to have multiple kids, but I definitely knew I wanted to be a husband and a dad. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. And you said your son's name is Seth?
Seth Liam. That's
a good name, man. I love it. I love it. So, getting to know that you're going to be a dad, is that a freaky situation, or is it more of like, what, I wanted to do this for a while, I'm prepared, going to get going on this? How'd that situation kind of go?
Yeah, both and. It was both. I knew I wanted to be a dad. I wasn't sure, I mean, God gives me what he gives me, girl, boy. But I grew up like helping raise my little cousins. So it was kind of a natural thing to help real children, if you will. So I felt like I was prepared and as ready as I could be, but I mean, it's scary. You're responsible for a life. You know what I mean? Like for the rest of your life. It doesn't stop when they're 18. They're still your child. So as we both can understand as we have parents.
100%.
We're still their children. You know what I mean? So yeah. I was ready and not ready.
I totally understand, man. Like to this day, I still ask my parents stuff. Just life questions.
Absolutely.
Like
never stop being our parents.
No, man, and that's the thing. That's the coolest part. As you get older, you don't look at them as the superheroes and everything. You look at them as a person, and you kind of understand how things were and why they were the way they were when you were younger, and kind of look at them a little bit differently. Like, I appreciate what you guys were doing, even though you were having this 20 different things on the other side, whether it was work, your relationship, your life outside of being a parent. Yeah. And it's cool to see them now and have a kind of a different relationship with them.
I agree.
And no, man, that's awesome that having a kid. That's something that me and Shannon are very interested in doing, where you're just kind of figuring out what more of the career side of things is going to be. Yeah. I just want to kind of be somewhat more financially stable, want to get out of the 1-bedroom apartment, get into a house sooner or later, if that ever freaking happens with these prices.
I actually want to say something to the people who are listening. So my cousin, him and his wife, they've had some things going on, but they did a really good job because they met in college. They did a really good job at making sure they planned their way through. And I know sometimes, we talk about, we want to have kids. It's like, no, we live in 2024. You can take your time and make this make sense. I'm not saying we have clocks and all of these things, but if you guys can come together and talk about it and make it make sense, like it can really work for you.
100%.
You know what I mean? They took their time. They planned their careers out. They got to a certain point, and now they're on their second kid. You know what I mean? Like they did it. I'm not saying they didn't have trials and tribulations,
of course,
but they put a plan together, so they were there together through the whole thing. You know what I mean? So
that's beautiful, man.
I just want to get at.
No, I love that. Yeah. I think that's a big thing because a lot of people kind of, accidents happen or, people kind of jump into it a little bit early and they're like, oh, wait, I didn't realize I'm going to have to give up going out with the boys or, going and doing whatever I wanted every single day. And now you have to think about you have a child. You have someone at home that, relies on you, wants to see you, obviously, and just wants you to be involved in their life. And it's kind of a change for a lot of people that some people are prepared for and other people are not. So it's definitely a big thing. Is your child is your child interested in, music and you doing your DJing and everything?
Actually pretty cool. So he's always thought it was cool that his dad's a DJ, but he recently just did I guess it's way bigger than this. It was about 4 or 5 feet. He just did his first huge painting. Hey. He did 2 of them actually, and he did them at my festival.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
That's awesome, dude.
And one of them sold.
Really?
Commission. Yeah.
Good for South, man. Shout out. That's the thing. Like when I see this art here, or like we were talking about the shoes before the podcast started, man, I watch people do that. I'm like, how?
Man, how do you take that image out of their head and do that?
I've tried, I'm sure if you look at my handwriting, it's chicken scratch, so just being able to create something out of your mind, an image, and then put it on a piece of paper or a pair of shoes or this canvas, I find it absolutely amazing. And I think it's really cool to see everybody's art. Like what you do is art, making music, doing what you guys do and promoting Jacksonville and doing all that. I find that to be a way of art. This is my art. I've just always been good with talking to people, kind of having conversations and, making friends. That's just something I've always been good at.
The art of conversation.
Yeah. Sure. I told you, I grew up as an only child for most of my life, so I was around adults most of the time.
A lot of conversations around adults.
Well, I had to find a way to, be interesting and not be that annoying, 10-year-old running around like, hey, check out what I got. Just kind of learn to have a little bit more conversation, and, it served me well. I've been very lucky, and, I was also taught manners very quickly as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, sir, no ma'am, all that stuff. If there was anything else coming out of my mouth, they would look at me, and there would be some other words coming to me real quick. But I think it's just amazing, man. Just seeing we were talking about the art here in Jacksonville, the growth of everything. I'm sure you've seen, you've been in Jacksonville longer than I have, to see what it went from, when you were in high school, when I was in high school, to where it is now. It's completely different. Man, it's switched. I don't know what caused it, to be honest with you.
I think I do.
Well, yeah. What do you think caused it?
Things. So I've had an opportunity. Being a DJ is pretty cool, and I understand why, as some DJs get older, they start to tell stories because you get to see a lot of things that other people don't. I'm not an artist. Meaning, I am an artist, but I'm saying I'm not a rapper or a singer, et cetera, et cetera. I'm playing their music. So where there may be 20 artists that come up to me, they all have their own individual experience. I get to have an experience with each of them in one night. You know what I'm saying? I get to see the crowd reaction. I'm not as attached to the things that they are. So I believe creatives just started creating more. I think that's ultimately what happened. There were some people who were maybe afraid, didn't have the outlets to put music out. I mean, social media has changed in 2024, just in the last 10 years.
That's true.
But definitely in the last 15 years. 2010, social media was changing when I graduated high school. And then it was like a 4-year gap. Things were changing. And then it just went stupid. You know what I mean? Like streaming started to become a thing. It so much. I don't think people understand. We haven't been streaming that long. Like,
it's a good point.
Netflix was a DVD.
Dude,
they did DVDs.
I remember getting them in the mail, and they used to do I'm a big video game player and everything. I remember being able to rent the video games from them. Video games for sure. And it would come in as a CD. I remember the little red and white packaging and everything. I remember that being huge. And you brought up like the streaming side of things. Like I remember when SoundCloud became the thing. There was a Spinrilla. I don't know if you ever heard of
Spinrilla.
Spinrilla. Like I would get all my Kodak Black and everything on there because I didn't want to pay for it. Like you know,
Spinrilla was crazy.
Yeah, say like that back in the day, and it's just crazy to see all the outlets that people have now, and I think it's amazing, man. You know, there's people like Post Malone or a mix of people who got big off of SoundCloud.
Literally,
you know, he was living in a closet at his friend's house making music, and then I think it was White Iverson went big overnight, and the next day he was a sensation. And now he's where he is today, multimillionaire. You know, growing his music in different genres, everything from R&B to rap to country music, rock. It's crazy to see the difference. And with you, you're more on the R&B side of things, correct?
Yeah, so I do everything.
Okay,
that's just what I like to put forth.
I totally understand.
So yeah, R&B that's my number one for sure.
What would you say are some of your personal favorite? Not the crowd. What's your personal favorite R&B either singers, songwriters, or creatives that you feel like are the best in your?
Yeah, so I have to give my props to, since we're on a podcast, especially. There's a podcast called R&B Money Podcast that Tank and Jay Valentine. So Jay Valentine, he's also an artist, but he is the manager to Tank, the R&B singer. Man, I think they're on episode like 105 or something.
Yeah.
And it's like R&B history for real. It's really crazy. And it's deeper than just R&B for them because they're musicians, so they make all types of music, and they're just giving a lot of. If you're an artist, I think it's very much so worth watching. They just to the point of podcasting.
Yeah,
having the opportunity to set something up in a remote place, you know what I mean, and have a conversation to put out to the world. They just give a lot of gems for people. So I actually will put Tank in there. So I'm going to give an older person, middle-aged person, and then somebody who's new. So older, man, even though he's king of pop, I have to go Michael Jackson.
Of course.
He's such a huge inspiration in my household. And to be honest, I listened to Michael Jackson because I wasn't allowed to listen to Prince. Because Prince was nasty.
Okay.
Yeah. So my dad was like, here, you can have Michael. He's not as bad.
Yeah.
And then I would say I definitely grew up, as far as R&B is concerned, Tank was such a huge influence. And I mean, he has a huge church background, but his music has been phenomenal. He's been able to stay relevant for over 25 years. So he's still putting out #1 albums right now. So,
hell yeah.
Yeah, Tank's going crazy. And then, man, there's so many people.
It's a big list, man. I know there's a bunch of great music out there nowadays.
Yeah, I'm actually going to shout out Eric Bellinger. He wouldn't be considered necessarily a new artist, but he's still newer to a lot of people. He's been making music for over 15 years, and been penning a lot of songs as a songwriter. But Eric Bellinger is amazing. So I have a brand called R&B Mostly, and he's like part of the reason I even created that brand. So
really,
yeah.
So what is the reasoning for what's the connection there? What made you want to start this brand?
Yeah, so SoundCloud.
Okay.
SoundCloud at one point was as did you use SoundCloud like that? Okay, so SoundCloud was where it was at. It was like you had all these mixtapes, then the SoundCloud era became a thing. They didn't even know how to monetize it for a minute because they're like, it's getting overloaded right now. So many people, so many creatives putting music out.
Yeah.
So Eric Bellinger had been writing songs for Chris Brown, Rihanna, all the top names, Neo, all the top names in the industry. But he was an artist himself for real. Just very similar to how Neo was when he came into the industry. But so at the time on SoundCloud, he was just going crazy.
Yeah.
He was dropping music sometimes every week. And his music was just timeless to me. And at the time, a lot of people were saying R&B was dead. But what was happening was how we were digesting music was changing. So streaming was starting to become more of a thing. People were still, I think at the time, Apple Music was not Apple Music. It was iTunes.
Yep.
Beats by Dre had an app. And
they had an app?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Beats by Dre had an app, and that app turned into Apple Music.
Really?
Yes.
I actually didn't even know that.
Yeah, man.
That's crazy.
It was such a weird, you see what I'm saying? For people who didn't know about the Beats by Dre app, all that happened was iTunes became Apple Music. But that's not what happened. Remember, Beats by Dre got bought by Apple.
That's right.
The headphones, everything they had. And then they took the interface and went, man, Dre got so rich.
That's what I was about to say.
So
I was like,
rich.
Dre got freaking money, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy for a big company like Apple to come out.
Yeah.
I remember when the over-the-ear headphones, man, those were the thing. Like, everybody was losing their minds for Beats by Dre. I remember that time. I was probably middle school. I'm trying to think about it. I got my first pair when I was young. I've like begged my parents for I was like, all I want for Christmas is a nice pair of headphones. And I remember, I guess that does make sense. I'm really thinking about it now. It's just time goes by so quick and things, and that gets lost in history.
Yes.
You know?
So that moment though, it was hard to, basically the industry was trying to figure out how to put music out, so they were only pushing what they push on the radio. Mm-hmm. So you weren't hearing Eric Bellinger, you weren't hearing Black, you weren't hearing what's his name, Bryson Tiller or Jacquees or any of the guys who started coming out of that 2015, 2016 time. So I was on SoundCloud like having the time of my life because this R&B music is everything, and y'all just aren't here, so y'all aren't hearing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I created this brand initially as a microblog to put those artists out.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I had artists like from all over the country submit. So I had like a SoundCloud channel as well. Mm-hmm. And I would do these little mixes and people would submit their music, and there's people from everywhere.
That's awesome,
so,
man.
Yeah, it's really dope.
That's crazy that you had that vision to really start putting that out there and, bring more attention to people. And I mean, like you said, Jacquees and all of them, these are still big names to today.
Absolutely, yes.
It's crazy to see someone go from an app where you're just putting stuff out to where they are today, huge. They're selling out arenas. They're selling out concert halls. It's crazy to see the growth for a lot of these people. And it kind of shows you that there's not that middleman anymore.
No.
You remember, like, obviously, there was one gentleman I had on here. He has his own brand. It's called Lucky Fool. And
shout out.
I think he was at Wine Down.
Yep.
And he was telling me he originally did music for a while. And he signed a brand, or signed, excuse me, not a brand, he signed a record deal. Wow. And he told me about how, it sounds really good, really flashy and everything. And then he told me the dark side of it.
Very dark.
They give you, this however much money up front, depending on who you are and everything. And then they don't tell you, they're like, we want that back.
Yep.
And until you give me that, you're not making any money.
Yep.
So you're really just, you're a salaried worker until you give them that money back. And obviously there's interest and everything added on top of that. And I think that's the part where people are missing that.
They're basically a big credit card.
Yes.
A big line of credit. That's what they do. But it's so much they don't tell you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Which is why they say it's important for you to have an entertainment lawyer to read these things, because they make them confusing on purpose.
Yeah. So, they don't want you to know. They want to make sure they can have you on the line, or, say you're about to, what he told me is like he was about to release an album and they were like, no, you're not. And I was like, ooh, that's kind of gross.
The album could be completely done and the most fire thing you ever heard, and they're like, we don't care.
Yeah.
You need to do this and this and this before you put this album out. And that might take you 5 years to do, whatever they asked.
That's a crazy idea, man. And you're signing your life away. There's nothing you can do about it. And he was lucky enough to, he either had to pay, or there was some part where he got out of it. I forgot exactly what it was, but I think it was some kind of payment that he had to make to him, and they finally let him go, which, lucky enough where it wasn't, $100 million or $50 million where some of these big brands get, or these big singers, songwriters and everything. And there was another gentleman, I forgot the guy's name. You were talking about how other artists would write songs for other people, or they would create songs and the company wouldn't let them release it. So they're like, fuck it, I'm going to just give it out to other people and we'll make money that way.
Sure.
I thought that was a real smart way of doing that, because there's like big songs where, like, whether it's Taylor Swift or any of the singer-songwriters that you spoke about, some of those songs aren't really technically theirs, but their music or their voice fit it enough to where it became a big hit.
Yeah. A prime example of that is Old Town Road. So a girl named Jazzy actually wrote the hook, and she kind of does a little bit of everything, but she's an R&B singer, and she's like doing really well.
Hey man, make the bag any way you can. If there's overlords saying you can't do something, find your way. And like we were talking about with streaming services and now social media, really the creator has the power now. If you can build that audience and keep putting something out that people love, a record deal is not going to do nothing for you now. You can get bigger and by yourself and keep your own people close, have your own management that you hand selected, not someone that the record labels chose or anything like that, and be able to create your own brand yourself and keep all your money, man.
Yeah.
You don't have to, I feel like that's the biggest thing, whether it's like NFL players or artists and everything. They have so many other people around them that they're paying these big salaries to, and you're like, you were top of your game. You were a multimillionaire. How are you broke 5 years later? That's always something that threw me off. And now learning a little bit more about the industry, it's like, oh, there it is. Yeah. I see where, you got to hand 75K to this person a year, 75K to this person. And, the guy who picked up your shoes, you got to give him a good bit of money. The guys who go find you, rare Jordans or anything like that. Yeah. It's a wild thing. But to get more into your story of becoming a DJ, tell me when that idea first came into your head. Obviously, you said you were in the military and you were already kind of doing it.
Yep.
When did the first idea come to you?
So 2015 is when I left active duty, Air Force, and I was kind of in this limbo space. So when you're transitioning out of the military, they give you like these really weird periods. I mean, I'm grateful for them, but really weird periods of leave. Depending on just how everything went in your career. So they might say, okay, for the last month, you can just hang out. Like, you still get paid, just hang out, go to your next duty station, whatever. You start work on this day. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of just in limbo and hanging out at my friend's house in Colorado, knowing I was about to leave. And I actually went to a concert. I started going to just more local things. I was in Colorado Springs at the time, which is a beautiful place. And there was a concert by this guy named Johnny Craig, and he had under him was a guy named Travis Garland. And Travis Garland, I had seen on, I was like watching Love and Hip Hop one time. Don't ask me why. And the commercial at the time, they would play like music videos, which was really cool because that's like some old school stuff they would do. So they played his music video, and the song was really dope. So I Shazammed it, looked him up, found out that he had been signed by Timbaland when he was younger in a group called NLT, Not Like Them, and Timbaland was about to put him out. Something happened, and they did an album. The album didn't come out, but all of those guys went on to do things in the industry. So one of the guys, he was like the choreographer for the group. He became like a famous choreographer in LA. One of the other guys became an actor on Glee.
Oh,
he was
really?
Like the guy with the glasses. I feel like he was in a wheelchair, but he's kind of odd looking guy, but he was a phenomenal actor. And then Travis Garland went on to have more of a music career. He went on American Idol. He started songwriting. So I'm learning about this guy. He's coming to Colorado. I'm gonna go see him. So I went. Me and him actually had a great conversation. He kind of told me that he had family that lived down in Ponte Vedra.
Really?
So I was like, "Hey man, would you ever come down to Florida? Have you been?" And he was like, "Yeah, I've never been there to perform." He was like, "I would love to if somebody invited me." And I was like, "Well, I can invite you, but I don't know what I'm gonna invite him to." You know what I mean? So that just kind of started my wheels turning because the stuff I was just telling you about me being on SoundCloud, listening to R&B.
Yeah.
So I created this brand. It was on Instagram only at the time, and I would just post up. Chris Brown would drop a song, and there would be a write-up that somebody put, and I would just take a screenshot of the write-up and do my own little write-up and put the song behind it. So, so that kind of started like this. I've always been a musical person, played a couple of instruments, a little bit, dibbled and dabbled most of my life, but I kind of started doing these mixes. So when I moved back here, got in the studio with a friend, helping him with some audio stuff. I've done a lot of stuff. I had a background in audio engineering when I was a kid. I used to audio engineer for my church.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had to learn boards and how to set a mic up. Simple, simple things, but things that people don't really know how to do.
It can be a pain in the ass. Trust me, I've learned from trial and error here, so I totally understand that.
So understanding, just volume and et cetera, et cetera. So ended up in the studio with a friend, and he had some opening coming up for a store. And he was like, "Hey man, you should DJ my opening." And I was like, "I'm not a DJ." He was like, "Yeah, but you play music, so you're a DJ." So we had like a back and forth conversation about it. And mind you, I moved back here, but I was still in limbo because I couldn't go to my school yet.
Gotcha.
So I was just here taking care of my son. I'm a night owl, so I'm like, when he's sleeping, what am I gonna do on some of these nights? I'm up. So I went ahead and bought a board and started kind of doing my mixes there. And then that turned into that event, which was a dud. And then he was like, "Well, I got one more thing." He was like, "I have a New Year's Eve party." I'm like, "You want me to DJ a New Year's Eve party? That's crazy." He was like, "But I believe in you." So I did it.
There you go.
It was actually a hit.
Yeah.
It went really well. I mean, I know I could have done a million things better, but I realized I could hold a crowd with music, and that started that journey for me. So that was December 2015.
Oh, wow, man. So you said, you've been doing this for a while.
December of 2016.
Still.
2015 was when I got back here. But
Okay.
yeah. Before I took about a year to kind of figure some things out. December 2016 going into 2017.
Gotcha.
So I started actually DJing.
What would you say was the hardest part about learning, the boards and setting everything up and everything? Because as you were saying, I had no background in audio editing. I had no background in video editing. This is all stuff I've taught myself, whether through YouTube University, messing around and learning different stuff, man, because originally we sat here, there was a dining room table here, and I would just sit here and do interviews, and that flag would be behind you, and that was really about it. I was recording on my iPhone. So it's,
how you start,
it takes time, man. It takes time. So what would you say were some of the harder parts that it took you to learn, getting into this industry and everything in between?
Yeah, so I'm not a perfectionist, but I'm definitely a little bit of an overachiever. I'm always trying to figure all the things out. So I was already kind of familiar with sound equipment and somewhat with DJ boards. So I think the hardest thing for me was really just figuring out timing on how to use everything, because everything, it's kind of, I'm not going to go into it too deeply, but everything is like a channel.
Yes.
That channel is the same thing over and over and over and over. The left channel, the left side of the deck is the same as the right side of the deck. Same buttons, just different sides. So I'm meticulous like that. So it's easy to kind of figure out some of the things. It's still some stuff I'm like, I don't know what that button does. I'm not going to use it.
Not going to touch
it. I don't need it. You know what I mean? But I think the biggest thing for me was timing, because I started learning the difference between a CDJ and vinyl, obviously, or a controller versus a MIDI controller. Trying to figure out that I just started playing around with all of them, and I got a lot of opportunities to learn how to scratch. And I dove head first in. So the biggest thing for me was timing. Yeah. Figuring out how transition song to song. Okay, if I'm scratching and I'm mixing, so that's the part that I still am always trying to perfect and get better at. So.
Hey man, I totally understand. I'm the same way. When I first got my board here, I got the Rodecaster Pro, the original one.
Rode is amazing.
It is. I say shout out to Red. If you guys want to check out us, please let me know. Like they made it really user friendly. So that was my big thing, because no background in this, and at the time when I bought that, it was like $700-800. I'm like, do I really want to invest this and really want to make it something that I want to do here? Because at the beginning I'm like, yeah, this sounds cool. I really think this would be a cool thing to do. Am I really going to invest this much money into something that I could quit 2 weeks later and it wasn't worth your time? So I made a promise to myself, and I was like, all right, if I'm going to invest this money, I'm going to do it. We're going to get this figured out.
Absolutely.
And sitting down learning this, and like cords come unplugged, or God forbid one of these connectors is messed up in some way, and you do a whole podcast, and then you listen to it later, and it's
terrible.
And you're sitting there and you're like, oh. Like, what do I do? I had a funny story about this board. So there's a slot where you can put a micro SD. That's where all the recording goes into and everything. I had sat down with Joe from Safe House, and I went to put the SD card in there, and there's a little slot above it that goes right into the board. And right when I put it in there, trying to get it to download and everything, it went inside the board. There's 50 screws on this board that I had to take apart. Shannon came home one day. I'm sitting there on my couch, like ready to throw it against the wall. I'm like, this interview was too good to not put out this week, because that's our big thing here is we put one out every single Monday. We've only missed one, and that was from us getting married. Besides that, I've been deathly ill, up 3-4 a.m. getting it downloaded and edited and all that stuff. And I was sitting there one day, I was just like, do I really love this? And like I went through it. I'm like, yes, I do. I'm like, I can do this. It's just a moment.
Stay committed, man.
Oh yeah, man.
Sure. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, man. Like seeing what you guys do and staying consistent, and getting in there, and doing what a lot of people would have given up a long time ago. As you said, the first event you did, no one it was a little bit of a dud. You said
it was, sure,
and that would kill a lot of people's confidence. That's a huge thing. Like that's something I preach here consistently: is be consistent. Be consistent. You may not have. I don't have 1 million listeners currently. But at the end of the day, doesn't mean tomorrow I don't have 1 million listeners, or the next week, or the next year, or whatever it is. And I personally enjoy doing this. This is something like I get to meet new people in my community, get involved, and make friends. At the end of the day, like I get to promote people who are doing good stuff here. And obviously with what you're doing, you're livening up the event. You're getting to meet people, network. Networking is a huge thing. And I watched a clip, and you were talking about how people think you're just watching the crowd and doing all that, but you're keeping an idea of like, what's the crowd smell like, what's the crowd doing, what are they dressed in, what are they really bopping their head to, and you're analyzing the event rather than when some people are just in there thinking, oh, he's just bopping, just doing his thing kind of thing. And you got a lot going on. So that's a big thing I feel like a lot of people aren't aware of, but you're in your head, you're sitting there, you're like, I got this, okay, this is what they're getting into. Or you get to meet someone who maybe gives you a new event to go to or get involved involved in. I did have one question for you. So one of my things that throws me off, I'm sure like the EDM music and all of that.
Yeah.
You see these people behind the board like messing around doing all this other stuff. Are they really doing that, or is that more just for show?
Depends on who it is.
Obviously, it's not everybody.
No,
but I see people going back there, like having the little switch going left and right and doing all this other stuff. I'm like, are they really like messing with it too much?
It depends on who it is. So, like, prime example, DJ Snake and Stevie Aoki, like those two guys.
Yeah.
Like, I've watched them in Vegas. Like, I've watched the clips very closely. I want to believe that they're doing all of those things. And when I say I want to believe, because I've watched them do all those things for real. I don't even know if he still makes music. He used to go by like Sick Kick. He wore like a really crazy mask. He was usually bedazzled, and he would do these crazy mixes.
That's cool.
I'll send them to you
Yeah,
later
definitely.
so you can see it. But like he came and did a show here in Jacksonville, and he's literally using all of his CDJs.
Okay.
So he has 4 CDJs in a mix. A CDJ is like the thing that looks like a vinyl, but it's not. It's just a jog wheel, but it's like a whole piece by itself. So he has 4 of those. He has a mixer in the middle. He's going crazy on all of them. I'm watching him. I'm like, yeah, this is crazy. So yes, EDM is comprised of those things, but there are those videos where you see the girl just like pressing a fake button, and she's like, yeah, and it's like, wait, that same song's playing. You just went from left to right. You didn't do anything.
Okay,
I just got one track playing.
That was one thing. I've always seen it. I'm just like sitting there, like in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know. That's just, I've kind of seen other stuff.
Yeah, it depends.
But to get a little bit more into like the DJing and everything you've done, I've seen you at many events, like whether it's through social media or maybe me and you probably rubbed shoulders and didn't even know, to be 100% honest with you. I've seen you working with like the Safe House. I was talking about how you were on OG Sessions podcast and really obviously on the news and a mix of things. It's crazy to see the amount of networking you have. How did you kind of find your way into those avenues and really get more involved in the community?
Yeah, so I've always been a community. Like I told you, I grew up with family that way, but because I moved around the city, I had friends who went to every school. You know what I mean? Like I went to elementary school on this side of town, then middle school on this side of town, but I'm connecting with the people in those neighborhoods. So I just try to keep up with people. I've tried to be that way my entire life. So when I moved back, that was kind of my goal, to reconnect with some of my old friends. And through that, I met a lot of new friends. So that's how I met Love Culture that way. We were all there. A mutual friend brought me to that show. And I met Spirit, and then we started working together. And then I met the rest of the crew, and then they brought me in on management and becoming a DJ. So I think just putting myself out there, just being in different, also not being afraid to be in different crowds. I don't mind being the only person in that room that I know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just opening myself. The same cousin I was telling you about, that's something that he's done amazing things. He's a role model of mine. But he would always tell me, like, hey, something I'm learning along this journey is sometimes you're only as good as the people around you. You know what I mean? Like when you're trying to go out and do other things. And just stressing to me the importance of networking. So I just try my best to keep up with people and put myself in rooms and spaces that, whether they're uncomfortable or I know everybody in there, just try to always be out forward facing and connecting with people. So,
yeah, man. Yeah. I'm the same way. Like we were talking about like the Safe House and everything, and you brought up John here. Yeah. I was at that event that he did his first art critique and everything, and I'm not an artist in any way, shape, or form. So I went there to support John. Obviously, I was kind of networking a little bit back and forth with the Safe House as well, because I had Joe on here. I also had his co-host Amp on here as well. Cool. And great. They're all awesome, dude. Sure. Yeah, they've all been solid. They've taught me a lot about podcasting because they have Random Acts of Podcast that's freaking amazing. Huge.
Shout out to Random Acts of Podcast.
Oh yeah, shout out to them, man. They're awesome dudes and like wanting to promote their content. And I went in there at the Safe House at the art critique show, and I sat there in the back of the room and just listened, because I wanted to hear how local artists described what they were doing, what they were just saying, like the vernacular on what they're talking about. Some people were talking about how they made them feel, how they, hey, then maybe next time you're doing this, and not in like an aggressive way, as a very helpful way, like maybe try this kind of pattern out, or maybe this material will work better for you next time. Yeah. And I feel like getting yourself in those surroundings of people who you might not know everybody in the room, and it's uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a very extroverted person, very, very extroverted. I'll go talk to a wall. But, in a room when there's like 40, 50 people and you don't know a single one in there, you're like, ooh, wait a second. I'm like, this is a little bit interesting, and I stick out. I'm 6'4", 6'5". So whenever I'm walking around, people are like, what's he do? And then I have stickers and I hand out like podcast stuff, and I'm like, hey, come check us out, kind of thing. And I feel like that's the best thing. You can never shake enough hands. Not everybody's going to be a great connection. Sure. That's something you have to remind yourself. There's a lot of people who are out there who will talk a big game, and then you see them a couple months later, they're not there anymore. They're not doing what they were originally doing. And then you'll meet a couple of those special people. You're like, oh, I see it. I can feel like, you're passionate about it, like with what you're talking about. Just this whole conversation, man, you've been through a journey and you've grown and you've gotten into bigger and better places than where you were before. And I love to hear that. That's like the part about doing the pod where I get to meet people who I can actually feel that they're going to keep doing what they want to do. And shout out to you, man. I think you're doing great stuff. Thank you. And obviously we can't go through the whole interview without talking about the Wine Fest. So there's a Wine Down Fest. Pardon me. Wine Down Fest. So you guys got a new event coming up. Is it next month or this month? Did it already pass?
October 5th.
Okay.
October 5th.
So tell me about it. It's a huge event from what I've been hearing about. Obviously, the news has caught wind of it, and a bunch of other people are talking about it. Describe what the fest is going to be, what's going to be involved, and I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of vendors and everything. Tell me all about it.
So first of all, shout out to the crew, Wine Down Wednesday Jacksonville, or Wine Down Wednesday Jackson.
All of them. Shout out to all of them.
Ravi, Dr. Dom, Wiz Kalia Bryant, and Will Morgan, Father Vagabond, and myself. We are the 5 Avengers, if you would call us that, of Wine Down Wednesday. So we work with Placemaking Jacks to put on this festival, man. And essentially is what we've done on these random Wednesdays that we do them once a month. But it's an outdoor, open-air concept. It's normally a 4-hour event. We're going to do about 8 hours. We plan to have about 40 to 50 vendors. It's going to be at the new Lift Every Voice and Sing part that's in the very rich historic neighborhood of La Villa, downtown Jacksonville. And yeah, man, we're just really looking forward to connecting the community, and there'll be live artists, regular visual artists just who have their work out there to sell and just to display. We'll have about 10 to 12 artists performing throughout the day. We'll have some panels and just a open community space. Obviously, it's Wine Down Wednesday, so we can't have a Wine Down Fest without wine.
Of course.
Food. So yeah, Chef Naps will be there. It's going to be an amazing time for the people who already know what Wine Down Wednesday is, and for those who don't, the festival is definitely going to be a different type of environment that we're trying to put out. But yeah, October 5th, that's 2 Saturdays from now. From 12 to 8, Lift Their Voice and Sing part. Yeah, I'm really excited to open this new space. They just opened this park. I think this is the 3rd event they're going to be doing. We are.
Is that the skate park that's down there, around that area?
Not the skate park. Okay. So do you know where the Prime Osborne and the new JTA. Oh, what bus station?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So Great House as well. Yeah, it's literally right there.
Hey, that's gonna be sweet. That's a good spot, man. Yeah, it's literally really central right there with everybody.
Yeah, so super excited everybody to see us activate the space.
Hell yeah! And are you guys already filled up on vendors and everything?
Man, we have a lot of vendors.
I'm sure you do.
We'll be sending out applications for that very soon. But yeah, I mean we're pretty much stacked. I mean people can always apply because Wine Down Wednesday is every month, so. We'll be having one in November. So, but yeah, we have quite a few people who've already applied.
What would be the best way for, say, future events and everything for people to apply to?
Yeah, we're on every platform, but we respond the most and are most active on Instagram. You can follow us at Wine Down Wednesday Jax. That's Wine Down Wednesday JAX, exactly how it sounds, exactly how it's spelled. And all of our information is inside of our bio. And if you just look on the page, you can see we have quite a few flyers and videos and visuals of what we're doing and what we've done. So
you guys do great on social media, by the way. Everything I see you guys post is very clean. It's very fun, uplifting and happy. Yeah. I think you guys do a great job on there. And I love seeing, like I said, seeing the events, especially like the Glass Factory, when I see people kind of going up there on stage and performing, man. Yeah. It's cool to see that you guys are giving people an opportunity here to show their art or sell their art or get involved, bring their food out there.
And I can speak to that, man. So Robbie, his heart and mind behind creating all of this was to help treat artists more fairly. Part of the reason why people weren't, so when I met Love Culture, right, to talk about just the history of Jacksonville and the artists changing, there just wasn't a lot of representation for other styles of music that existed. So Wine Down, came years later, but the goal is to provide spaces like a Young Love Culture to come and perform and have a space to incubate and get it to an audience that's in their city. You know what I mean? So I just feel like we've been able to do a pretty good job at keeping those spaces open for artists to come and whether it's a curated set that they have or they hop on a cypher. Yeah, man, we try to give people just opportunity to display their art for real.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I say me and Shan need to make it out to one. We haven't had a chance yet.
Just come out.
I say with that, it's on a Saturday, so I feel like we can definitely make a chance.
I know Wednesday is hard for some people who have kids and jobs and responsibilities.
It is hard for me, man. I work 9 to 6 every day, and then some days I just come home like I don't want to move. I just want to sit.
I feel you, but definitely come out to the festival.
Man,
it's free, man. So if you want to elevated VIP experience, we have that as well. That'll be Chef Naps on the food for that part.
Shout out Chef Naps. I need to get him on here too. I've been aware of him for a little while as well.
Naps need to come
shout out Naps, man. Yeah. But no, like I said, I would love to come out there and just go show support, man. Go shake some hands, say what's up to everybody.
Sure.
Because Robbie, Dr. Dom, Kalila, everybody was super cool with me, man. And we still need to get Vagabond on here, man.
Come on.
I know he's a busy man, business owner and everything, so I totally understand. But definitely would love to get the rest of the crew on here, man. And one day get everybody on here at the same time.
Sure.
I love seeing bringing people together who want to show the positive sides of Jacksonville because there's so much, man,
so much that I guess I can consider myself one of the pioneers on this side of making space for the newer artists here in Jacksonville. And it's just been beautiful to see. Like I said, I've just been seeing creatives come out. I had a conversation with my guy Metamorphosis. Shout out Metamorphosis. He's an amazing, how do you say it? Caricatures? He makes caricatures.
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about now that you said
Metamorphosis. Yeah. He's a photographer and videographer as well. But we were having a conversation the other day just about how I believe creatives just feel more comfortable to it's just so many mediums now. And it's like you can literally stay in your bedroom and create and put it out.
I totally agree.
If it's fire, put it out, man. You want to hear it.
Yeah, and I feel like it gives them a good spot. A lot of people are like, oh, I want to take over the world with their music. If you can't take over your street, can't take over your city, you got to, take the baby steps, man. And I'm really big into believing the consistency, as we talked about earlier in the podcast, is keep putting it out there, man. You never know who's listening. You never know who's going to find it.
Literally never know.
Like Tyler, the Creator, is one of those guys. He'll look for music that people aren't listening to and be like, why the hell is no one listening to this? I've seen many videos where he's like, this is fire. Yeah. What's everybody's problem, and help promote those local artists or smaller artists and help them grow as well. So I think it's cool that you guys are giving them a megaphone to really put their stuff out there, get involved, and show what they're doing and how talented local Jacksonville really is.
Appreciate it, man. And we can't do this without the artists. You know what I mean? We're just a conduit and a platform to make sure people have space. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy because it's not.
I'm sure.
But I'm just grateful and thankful that artists entrust us to do such a thing for them. So. Yeah.
Hell yeah. And one thing that you brought up, you said you guys are going to have panels. What kind of if you're okay with talking about it, I don't want to put anything out too early. So what kind of panels and maybe some topics or what's kind of going on?
Yeah. So I'll speak specifically to one of them. So Lift Every Voice and Sing Park is it's a special project because it taps into the history of La Villa for us as Black people and things that, how the city's changed and just what that area means for us. So we're going to have some of the creatives come and talk, you know what I'm saying? And they essentially they tapped into it if anybody was able to go to the grand opening when they did essentially the ribbon cutting. We're going to be talking about why Lift Every Voice and Sing? Like what is the purpose of this and how does this impact Jacksonville's history? And put that forward. So we'll be talking about things like that.
That's good, man. I think it's good. You got to talk about some of the not so nice times to make it into better times. Sure. The famous saying goes, those who don't learn history are bound to repeat itself.
Man, I say this all the time. History is so important. How can you move forward if you don't know where you came from?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I totally agree, man. And it's good for people to listen to the not so great times and learn from those mistakes because, luckily we're in a world now, at least in my personal opinion, where people are a little bit more open-minded to learning, from past mistakes and moving past that. In my personal opinion, I still find it crazy that we're still talking about color, or you're gay or straight, any of this stuff in 2024, man. We're all just people. You're either a good person or a bad person to me. It doesn't matter. That's something that you can't control. So I think it's big to get out there and have some of these uncomfortable conversations to really show people like, hey, this happened. This is how we're going to move past it. Yeah. Not saying it's forgiven or anything like that, but at least work on it to make a better future than stay in the same perpetual circle that, the news, not News for Jack, shout out News for Jacks, but bigger stuff where they're kind of pinning us against each other.
Literally.
When it really shouldn't be that way, man. I don't care what you look like. If you're a good person, you treat me nice, I treat you nice. That's all we have to be. It doesn't have to be this thing where I'm like, oh, he's trying to get something on me or blah, 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 blah. It's just, it's not like that, man. In my personal opinion.
Nah, at the end of the day, the power is in the people. You know what I mean? When we can come together and, to your exact point, have those uncomfortable conversations, man. I've been seeing this meme, and I love it because sometimes memes piss me off. But it's a meme, and I love it because it talks about how some of the best things in a relationship are on the other side of that uncomfortable conversation. And that's in a one-on-one relationship, a 5-on-5 relationship, a human-on-human relationship. When we start having these uncomfortable conversations, we can start healing and moving forward as people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. So, I totally agree, man. And that's where I was lucky, where I grew up around a rainbow of people.
Yeah.
And I played sports growing up. I played basketball, I played football and everything growing up, and I got to see people who lived different than me. Didn't have as much as I did. And, still showed up, still put that hard work in to grow and be a better person. And it taught me to not have that sense. And also I was lucky enough to have parents that said, treat everybody with respect. Doesn't matter what they look like, their religion, their background and everything. It's respect until there's a reason not to, kind of thing. And I think that's a big thing for that conversation to go out. Obviously there's so many different things going on in the world right now, whether it's from the election or whatever BS. Man. It's just, I feel like everything is trying to be negative and push us against each other, where you said the power is in the people, where I feel like a lot of people don't put that together, where we're the ones who's supposed to be in charge. Not the government. We're supposed to be in charge.
It's literally us. I mean, we won't have to get into
You're fine. I understand.
But no. I mean, at the end of the day, the government is created to protect and to move around the people. You know what I'm saying? To put things together for the people. Spent some time in LA recently with Love Culture. Shout out Love Culture, by the way. And just to see, and I'm not saying a lot of cities still have all of their bull stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? But to see how free those people are able to move around that city, they had. Man, it felt like a 30-minute bike ride. We were standing in line for Big Sean's album release party, which was dope.
That's pretty cool.
Randomly got invited to it. Better Me Than You. Go check it out if you haven't heard. It's an amazing album. But we're standing in line, and this parade of bikes came by, and the bike parade didn't stop. It felt like 20 minutes. And I'm like, there's traffic. I don't, but the city supports things like that. You can have a 20-minute stopping of traffic, bike ride. It's okay. This doesn't happen every Friday night. That's dope.
That cool.
Happens. Legislation has to happen. People have to sign off. This is okay. I mean, they can, go rogue, but they're going to get stopped. So when the city, we can get to a city level, when the city starts to support the locals and what the things that they desire to see the city grow, man, imagine if 50 cities could do that.
I agree.
And 100 cities can do that.
And they can.
Literally,
they can.
Because it's people.
Yes. So. No, I totally agree. So I got 2 final questions for you. And this has been a very enlightening interview. Awesome. And like I said, thank you so much for your time today, man. I know you're busy. Of course, it's an open door policy, man. Anytime you want to come on and talk, I'm always more than happy to.
For sure.
So one of the other things that's big on our channel here is mental health. Yeah. I saw that on your page. What does mental health mean to you and being a mental health advocate mean?
Sure. So thank you for catching that. I definitely consider myself a mental health advocate. Man, our mind, a lot of times we separate, right? It's like health and then mental health. It's like, no, you realize your mind controls your body.
Everything.
You know what I mean? It controls all of those things. So it's really one health. You know what I'm saying? It's the entirety of your being. But when our minds are not functioning and firing at even a decent level, you're talking about stress that starts to exist in your body and sickness. And we can go all up and down of what it is, but why it's important. Man, if we want to live at least decently fruitful lives in this world, our minds have to be intact. You know what I mean? And I think part of the issue is that separation because some people and some communities are just starting to have conversations for real about mental health, but it was always togetherness. You know what I mean? Your foot is hurting. You need to check in with your mind. You deal with sports. Watching sports, you see this all the time. An injury happens, and sometimes they're afraid to go back. I'm not saying it doesn't exist in your body, but your body's going to do what you tell it. It's usually a block in your mind. And that's why sports psychology is so important, because if you want these athletes to operate at a high level, you need to make sure their mind's right. You know what I mean? That their mind is connected to their knee. Yeah. Because everything is connected to the mind. So just how powerful the mind is. And we're talking about physically, but even spiritually, emotionally. The mind taps into all those things. So, I mean, you have bad mental health, your life is probably going to suck.
No, I totally agree, man. And the reason why I bring that question up is like that's something that's been a big topic on our show here from the beginning is, like I grew up like hardcore depression, hardcore. And like, Shannon will see it pop up every so often with me where she's like, you're quiet today. What's going on with you? Like kind of pull off to the side and everything. And I'm big on men talking about it. Yeah. Because as you said, there's some sections, some women are really into talking about it. And same with women. They're not wanting to talk about it. And same with men, guys were kind of always taught up to, be strong, pull yourself up. And say you're a man, you got to get this going, whatever. And if I didn't start talking about it, whether it was through therapy or doing this and talking to other people who had similar experiences with me, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
For sure.
Like that's a very big thing. And I think it's big for, to talk about it, not lean on it. To talk about it, to say, hey, this is what I'm going through. I'm not in the right headspace right now, or this is something that's bothering me, and talking it through. Doesn't mean you're going to fix it. Doesn't mean it's going to go away right there, but you're putting that energy out and you're sitting down with someone who can hopefully understand what you're going through, or at least be able to talk it through with you rather than just thinking you're alone. That's like my biggest thing is like making sure people don't feel like they're alone.
Man, so I have a question. How deep can we get into this mental health topic?
I'm more than happy to talk about it. Whatever you want.
I want to put a graphic warning because this might be graphic. It's not graphic. I'm not going to say any details like that, but my history of mental health. So I've been to therapy quite a few times, mostly in my adult life. It changed my life literally, but there's a moment, man, this is 2017 2018 maybe. I had a really great buddy of mine who I served with in Colorado Springs, literally like a super light. And so to take it back a little bit, I worked in something called an area dental lab when I was a dental lab tech, which is not normal. Most people work in like 2 or 3 person shops, and they work with the dentist, and that's their life. You know what I'm saying? Even if they're transferring across the country or across the world. It's only a few area dental labs. I was fortunate to go to one of them. So we work with about 60 or 70 people. We're all lab techs, and we might be in Colorado Springs, we're working on stuff in Korea, from Korea.
Gotcha.
So he was super light there, you know what I mean? And I left, and we're still keeping contact with a lot of those guys. And got the news that he jumped off a cliff, literally, right? And kind of went back. Mine is just like a really close friend of mine at the time. And we just hadn't talked just because of life. And he was working and girlfriend and all these things. And I got the details. And, he did a lot of meticulous things. Like he signed his stuff over to his dad. And like he was just making moves. And for whatever reason, I guess he just felt like he couldn't talk to people, which was wild. Obviously I wasn't there, so I don't know what happened during the time I was gone, but we had a lot of conversations just as people. But it talk about the signs and all those things. As men, a lot of times we don't have a lot of spaces to be vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? And emotions are for every human who is alive. Like everybody's gonna feel emotions, so to have a space to be able to release those emotions, especially if it's like when you go to therapy, they talk about coping. That therapist cannot be there for you 24/7.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You have that session, and the goal is to have better coping mechanisms if you need to be on medication or if you need to figure out a different method to your life. You know what I mean? It's just super important because that moment was like, I was already tapping into my mental health. That moment was so real for me. Like my friend jumped off a cliff, literally. You know what I'm saying? There's video of it, like from because Colorado Springs. So it's sometimes they have cameras in some of these parks and some of these places. You know what I'm saying?
Really?
Just to make sure nothing's going crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, there's video of it. So it was just such a heartbreaking thing, man. You know what I mean?
No, I totally agree, man. And I'm sorry to hear that you've had to go through that. Like I have people who aren't here anymore either, man. And it's a serious thing, and a lot of people are like, oh, no one's going to care. People will care. Yeah. If
absolutely.
That's the one thing is like, you're not alone. Everybody goes through it, man. And like some people are diagnosed with full blown like chronic depression, and other people are depressed for a minute, but there are people who are feeling what you're feeling at the same time. Yeah. And I feel like the power of talking about it, man. It really, like, you ever have just a really good conversation with someone, you walk away from it, you're like, I feel lighter. I feel a lot lighter. Yes, and
what often happens when you have a conversation, I'm not saying, some people don't have good people around.
That's very true as well.
I encourage people to try to find good people to be around you, but sometimes you just have a human connection conversation and you realize, I'm not alone, literally. Yeah. And that sometimes is enough to at least move you through those next couple of days. You know what I'm saying? So there's a saying from, I guess you can call him a guru that I follow. He's not alive anymore. He goes by Ram Dass.
And I know you're talking about.
The saying is, we're all just walking each other home. And it's such a simple statement, but it's like, yes, like a lot of us don't know what we're doing, but the fact is we at least have each other.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? We can have conversations. We can, as we're on this walk and on this journey, if people have read, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the book. Yes, I do. The Alchemist.
Yes.
So if you read The Alchemist, he's going on this story, he's going on this journey. It's like he's meeting all these people, and these people are helping him throughout life, like giving him life gems as he's meeting them and stopping and having these conversations. It's just such an important thing for me, man, to just simplify it, man. We're walking each other home.
I totally agree, man.
See somebody next to you, man. Reach out, have a conversation.
Yeah, man. Even if you're just thinking about them, shoot them a text.
For real.
Call them. It's easier nowadays to get into contact with someone.
So easy.
And no, I think it's a big thing. And like this is something I've had conversation with Shannon a bunch of times is I feel like people are kind of coming to your life for a reason, whether it's to teach you a lesson, to help you with something, or there's just some reason that you cross paths with them. And, I've thought about that in my life where, sometimes a friend is for a season. Sometimes they're for a life.
Reason, season, lifetime.
Exactly. And that's where I'm very lucky where I have a group of friends. Like one of my best man at my wedding, Nolan, I've known him for 20 years. That's been my guy.
Shout out to you, Nolan.
Shout out Nolan.
Best very important.
No, he's my best friend. Wow. I literally hang out with them every single weekend. We always go out, and I also have a group of friends such as like TJ, everybody in that group where, they might like talk some shit, but if I really am having an issue, I know I can go to them, or my wife or my family. I know I can go to them and be like, hey, I'm really going through it right now. And like I said, it's not going to fix it all the time, but at least I know I can put that out there, listen to them. Maybe they drop a gem. That's something that I was like, okay, maybe I didn't think about it that way, or maybe this is really what's going on and I'm just having a freak out moment here. And it's very important, man. So I think mental health and getting out there and talking about it, just getting involved, man, and make sure you're okay. Obviously, we all want to make sure everybody else is okay, but we got to make sure we're okay.
You're good, man. And you just talked about, I've been pushing this a lot this year, the importance of community. Man, we were not put here alone.
Exactly.
We were not put here to be alone. You know what I mean?
We're social creatures.
Literally, because this is how our house gets built. We have to do it together.
Yes.
We sit, we plan, we're going to build a house, and I need you to do this part, and you're going to do this part. Bet, break, let's do it.
Nothing's done by yourself. I whether it's business, whether it's something else that you're putting together, you're going to need help sooner or later, or something's going to need to bounce your way that really shouldn't have bounced your way, or someone gave you a chance and it changed your life. So get out there and have those conversations, man. That's why I love talking about this kind of stuff. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people. I've asked many people about it, and, some people are really about it. And I've had other people who tell me, their story of maybe about to take their life and other things and really break it down for me. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, wow. It changes my perspective on it. So I think it's a big thing, and it's awesome that you're an advocate for it. And I think it's something that's a lot of people need to bring it up a little bit more. Like I said, you don't have to lean on it saying like, this is why I am, I'm never going to change or anything like that. But at least put it out there, man. I put it out there myself. I've told many stories about things where, I could not be here anymore. That is a true statement, and then I have to think about it. And I'm like, I have so much to be thankful for where other people have nothing. Literally nothing. And I got I got a roof over my head. I got food in my pantry, and I'm lucky enough that I can pay to have and go do some nicer things that some people would dream of doing. So it's always a perspective shift. You just got to take a look at it and be like, you know what? Maybe my life's not that bad, and maybe I'm just putting that on myself.
That's real.
But I got one final question for you, my man. And I ask this anytime someone's new on the podcast. It's always my last question, and it is, do you feel successful? And if you do or do not, in what ways?
Success. I always think about the song by that's Drake, ain't it? Successful. Drake and Trey Songz.
I think it is, yeah.
It is. Success for me, I do feel like I'm successful. Success for me is I've been able to take things out of my head and make them happen. And that's from relationships to businesses to graduating high school. I mean, it's part of being human is to think things and do them. You know what I mean? To create. So I feel very successful. And I guess to answer why, because I'm a goal setter for real. I've literally always been like that my entire life. And man, that's such a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just feel like I've been able to accomplish a lot of things. I have so many more things to do. Literally, like I'm going to leave here and do more things. But I feel like I am successful because I've been able to do what I set out to do, and I'm going to continue to do what I continue to set out to do.
Hell yeah.
So, I do feel successful, and that's why I hope that answers that question.
No, you did, man. Yeah. The reason why I asked that question is because it makes everybody pause.
Yeah.
I always ask that. I never tell anybody that's going to be the final question for that specific reason, because it kind of hits people differently.
Yeah.
They're like, do I feel success?
What is success?
What is success?
Yeah.
Because some people are like, I got money in the bank. Some people are like, I have a healthy family that loves me and takes care of, and I can, like, they take care of me, I take care of them. Other people are like, I'm deep in my community, or, you know, their love with God or whatever it is, and that's their success. So the reason why I always ask that is just, I'm always interested to see what success means to someone else.
Yeah.
Because, you know, for me, I feel successful with my marriage, you know, with my family. And, you know, I'm not exactly where I want to be when it comes to the occupation or anything yet, but I know that there's more out there for me, and I'm going to discover it sooner or later.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky enough just to have that. That's my success right there. And to build on it, man. It's just a thing where, you know, I'm not rich. I'm not a millionaire, and nowhere near a millionaire. But at the end of the day, I'm pretty happy with my life. You know, there's going to be some days I come home from work and I'm pissed and it was just a shitty day. But then I get to sit down with my wife, make dinner, hang out, talk about our day, you know, collaborate with each other there. And like, yeah, that was shitty, wasn't it? And now we're here hanging out together and we're happy, you know. So that's my big thing. And I think your answer is beautiful as well, my man.
I appreciate it. It's I've been trying to focus on lately, even though people see me everywhere, I've been trying to focus on slowing things down, smelling the flowers, appreciating the moments that I get to have, you know what I mean? The relationships that I get to forage, and just to talk about the success thing. That's what it's, success ultimately is what you define it as. Exactly. You know what I mean? And me being able to take things out of my head, that's not just, like I said, not just business, that's in relationships. I've been able to create beautiful bonds with people, and it was intentional, and it was, okay, this person's cool, I enjoy spending time with them, I enjoy getting to know them, I want to go deeper, whether that means we create a business together or start a family together, whatever, you know what I mean? So yeah, thank you for that question.
Hey, no problem, man. Like I said, and I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. You're welcome anytime, man. Like I said, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, as you said.
For sure.
And I like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I say you're inspiring people. You're also making people want to get out there and work harder and do what they want to do and push for their dreams, man. So I commend you guys on that. You guys are doing amazing things. Before I let you go, if you want to let everybody know where they can follow you, all your stuff on social media and Wine Down Fest and all that good stuff.
For sure. One more time, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, X. I hate saying that.
I hate it too. Crazy. It's Twitter. I don't care what anybody says.
Twitter. I have a small documentary on YouTube. You can look all of those things up. It's at I am DJ Larry Love. It's IAM DJ LARRY LOVE. Wine Down Wednesday Jacks. If you go to that page, you can find everything about Wine Down Fest that's happening October 5th. Lift Their Voices Scene Park. Yeah, man, shout out to Love Culture. Shout out to my brand, R&B Mostly. It's actually a monthly event that we do.
Hey.
R&B party. It's really dope. We're about to do some expanding things.
Let me know, man. Be more than happy to come out and show support.
Happy, for sure. Shout out Auntie's House. Shout out Love Culture, the gang. Yeah, man. Shout out to all the family members. But you can find all those things I'm a part of at my Instagram, for real. Everything is there. So,
hell yeah, man.
Shout out to Love is a Mood. I'm Love. A Mood is my brother. I make music as well sometimes. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Nah, man, I love it. And like I said, I'm sure we'll definitely do a part 2, get more into everything, man. I say you're just involved in so much. And I was like, I had to figure out what I'll talk about today. Sure. But guys, make sure you go give him a follow on all the social media. It will be linked in the description for everything. I'll make sure I put the Wine Down Fest information in there as well. You guys will be able to click on there, go straight to his page or straight to Wine Down, all that good stuff. And before we get out of here, if you guys want to give us a follow as well, it's going to be Who Are You Pod on everything from Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all the normal spots. Make sure you guys check out our YouTube as well. We're putting more videos out there. We're actually looking into making some other kinds of content, a little bit more me and the wife kind of thing. You guys might see some more videos of that coming out in the future as well. It's going to be Who Are You? Podcast. And my final thing, y'all, if you guys feel like you have a story that needs to be told, a business owner, an entrepreneur, an artist, or you know someone who you feel like would be a good fit for the show, make sure you guys hit me up on the social media, whether through DMs or you can email me. It's going to be whoareyoupod@yahoo.com, and maybe we'll have you guys on a future episode. But as I say every single week, thank you so much for checking us out, and we'll see you guys next week.